The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional medical, psychological, or behavioral health advice. Social media addiction is a complex psychological phenomenon, and while we discuss recent studies and historical trends, this content should not be used to diagnose or treat any condition. If you or someone you know is struggling with compulsive behaviors or mental health challenges related to technology use, please consult with a licensed mental health professional or a healthcare provider. The creators of this content are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information provided herein. Conduct your own due diligence and seek professional guidance before making significant lifestyle or health-related changes. The average American now checks their smartphone approximately 144 times per day. That is once every few minutes from the moment we wake up until the moment we close our eyes. While we often dismiss this as a modern habit or a simple byproduct of the digital age, recent neurobiological studies from major U.S. institutions suggest something far more calculated and, for many, far more concerning. You are currently participating in the largest psychological experiment in human history, one where the laboratory is your pocket and the reward is your very own brain chemistry. Scientists are now observing that the neural pathways activated when you receive a like, a comment, or a share are the exact same pathways stimulated by chemical substances. This is not a metaphor. This is a physiological reality that has been mapped using functional magnetic resonance imaging. We have moved beyond the era of simple entertainment into an era of biological hijacking. If you have ever felt an inexplicable urge to refresh your feed, even when you know there is nothing new to see, or if you have felt a pang of anxiety when your phone is out of reach, you are experiencing the results of a multi-billion-dollar industry designed to bypass your conscious will. This video is a deep dive masterclass into the mechanisms of social media addiction, stripping away the polished interfaces to reveal the psychological architecture underneath. We will analyze the specific data points that reveal how our attention is being harvested and why the human brain, evolved over millions of years, is fundamentally ill-equipped to handle the infinite scroll of the 21st century. To understand why this matters to you today, we must look at the historical trends of the last decade. In the early 2010s, social media was marketed as a tool for connection. Today, U.S. studies from organizations like the Pew Research Center and JAMA Psychiatry reveal a shifting landscape where connection has been replaced by consumption. For the average U.S. viewer, the problem this solves is the mystery of your own time. Have you ever wondered where the last 2 hours went? Have you felt a decline in your ability to focus on a long-form book or a complex task? By the end of this analysis, you will understand the specific variable reward schedules used to keep you engaged, the role of the reward prediction error in your dopamine levels, and the concrete ways in which your cognitive architecture is being reshaped by algorithmic feedback loops. We are going to bridge the gap between scrolling too much and the clinical reality of what researchers are calling problematic interactive media use. Getty images. At the heart of this issue is a concept known as the attention economy. In a traditional economy, goods and services are traded for currency. In the digital landscape, the currency is your time and your ocular focus. To maximize this currency, developers at the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, a place where many of the original architects of social media were trained, applied principles of behavioral psychology to software design. One of the most potent tools they utilized is the variable ratio reinforcement schedule. This is a concept pioneered by psychologist B.F. Skinner. In his experiments, Skinner found that if a laboratory animal received a reward every time it pressed a lever, it would eventually stop pressing once it was full. However, if the reward was unpredictable, given only some of the time at random intervals, the animal would press the lever compulsively, even to the point of exhaustion. When you pull down on your screen to refresh a feed, you are performing the digital equivalent of pulling the lever on a slot machine. Sometimes you get a high-value reward, such as a message from a loved one or a viral video that makes you laugh. Other times you get nothing of value. It is the unpredictability, the maybe this time, that triggers a massive release of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens, the brain's primary reward center. Recent U.S. studies have shown that the anticipation of the reward is actually more chemically potent than the reward itself. Your brain is not addicted to the content. It is addicted to the search for the content. Furthermore, we must examine the removal of stopping cues. In the physical world, there are natural endpoints. You finish a chapter in a book, you reach the end of a newspaper, or a television show goes to a commercial break. These cues allow the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive function and decision-making, to wake up and ask, Is this still what I want to be doing? Social media has systematically removed these cues through features like the infinite scroll and autoplay. By creating a frictionless environment where the content never ends, the platform prevents the brain from entering a natural state of reflection. A 2023 study published in the journal Technology, Mind and Behavior highlighted that this lack of boundaries leads to a state of flow that is not productive but dissociative, where users lose track of their physical environment and their own internal needs. The impact on the American household is measurable. Data from Common Sense Media indicates that the average U.S. teenager now spends upwards of 7 hours a day on screen media, not including schoolwork. For adults, the numbers are not significantly lower when factoring in work-related digital consumption and evening doom scrolling. This is not merely a waste of time. It is a displacement of essential human activities. We are seeing a historical trend where time previously allocated for deep sleep, face-to-face social interaction, and physical movement is being cannibalized by digital interfaces. The potential outcomes of this shift are only now being fully understood through longitudinal studies. We also need to discuss the dopamine baseline. When the brain is constantly flooded with high-frequency, low-effort rewards, it undergoes a process called downregulation. To protect itself from overstimulation, the brain reduces the number of dopamine receptors available. This means that activities that used to be pleasurable, such as a walk in the park, a conversation with a friend, or working on a hobby, begin to feel boring or flat by comparison. This creates a feedback loop. Because real life feels less stimulating, the individual retreats further into the digital world for a chemical hit, further lowering their baseline and increasing their dependency. This deep dive is not about demonizing technology, but about understanding the potential outcomes of using tools that were built to understand us better than we understand ourselves. Throughout this series, we will break down the specific neurochemicals involved, not just dopamine but oxytocin, cortisol, and serotonin, and how each is targeted by specific social media features. We will look at the social validation loop, where the human need for tribal belonging is exploited for engagement metrics. We will analyze case studies of individuals who have successfully re-engineered their relationship with technology, and we will look at the emerging regulatory landscape in the U.S. that aims to protect users from the most predatory design practices. By the time we are finished, you will not see your phone as a simple utility, but as a sophisticated psychological interface that requires a deliberate strategy to manage. This is about reclaiming the most valuable asset you have, your undivided attention. To understand the physical manifestation of this digital grip, consider the morning routine of Sarah, a 32-year-old software project manager living in Austin, Texas, in early 2026. Like millions of other Americans, Sarah does not wake up to the sun or a traditional alarm clock. She wakes up to a haptic vibration on her wrist. Before she has even processed the transition from sleep to wakefulness, her thumb is already performing a ritualized dance across the glass of her smartphone. This is not a conscious choice. It is a neurological reflex conditioned over thousands of repetitions. Recent 2025 longitudinal studies from the University of Pennsylvania have identified this as the precognitive check. Before the executive functions of Sarah's brain, the parts responsible for planning her day or evaluating her health are fully online. Her limbic system is already hunting for chemical rewards. Imagine if every time you walked into a room, a group of people stood up and applauded for 3 seconds, then immediately sat down and ignored you. That is the psychological equivalent of a notification bubble. In 2026, the design of these notifications has reached a level of precision that historical trends from 2010 could never have predicted. We are no longer dealing with simple red dots. We are dealing with predictive algorithms that know exactly when your dopamine levels are at their lowest point in the day. U.S. researchers have observed that platforms now time the delivery of social validation, likes, follows, and comments, to coincide with periods of high cognitive load or emotional vulnerability. If Sarah has had a stressful morning meeting, the algorithm recognizes her reduced interaction speed and may release a batch of held notifications to provide a tactical dopamine spike, effectively self-medicating her stress with digital validation. This brings us to the concept of the reward prediction error. This is a fundamental principle of neurobiology that explains why social media is more addictive than almost any other form of media. When Sarah checks her feed, her brain is making a prediction about what she will find. If she finds something better than she expected, a viral video that perfectly matches her humor or a heartfelt message, the brain releases a surge of dopamine. This surge tells the brain, "This was better than expected, do this again." However, the genius of the 2026 interface is the intentionality of the miss. To keep the reward prediction error high, the platform must ensure that you do not find high-value content every time. You must find trash or filler content 60% of the time. This intermittent reinforcement creates a craving that is far stronger than a consistent reward. A 2026 white paper from the Center for Humane Technology suggests that this specific ratio of high-value to low-value content is the primary driver of what we now call the infinite scroll. The infinite scroll itself is a masterclass in behavioral engineering. Developed originally by Ozza Raskin, it was designed to eliminate the friction of clicking to a next page. In the context of the US market in 2026, where the average attention span for digital video has shifted significantly, the infinite scroll acts as a psychological vacuum. Because there is no finish line, the brain never receives the signal to stop. In clinical case studies conducted at Stanford University over the last 12 months, participants were placed in rooms with infinite scroll interfaces and asked to stop when they felt satisfied. The results were startling. Most participants never reached a state of satisfaction. They only reached a state of cognitive exhaustion. They didn't stop because they were done. They stopped because their brains could no longer process the information. This is the difference between eating a meal and being hooked to an intravenous sugar drip. One has a biological full signal, the other bypasses it entirely. Consider the historical trends of haptic feedback. In the early days of the iPhone, vibrations were simple and binary. By 2026, your phone uses high-definition haptics to mimic the physical sensation of pulling a slot machine lever or the pop of a bubble. This tactile feedback creates a multi-sensory reinforcement loop. When Sarah pulls down to refresh her feed, that micro-vibration in her hand is interpreted by her brain as a physical interaction with the world. This makes the digital reward feel realer to the subconscious mind. Studies from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology have mapped the somatosensory cortex during these interactions, showing that the brain begins to treat the smartphone not as an external tool, but as a literal extension of the nervous system. This is why many US adults report feeling a sensation of phantom vibration, the feeling that their phone is buzzing in their pocket when it isn't even there. This is not a hallucination. It is a sign that the brain's predictive models have become so focused on the digital reward that they are hallucinating the cue. The cost of this constant state of high alert is a chronic elevation of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Every time Sarah sees a notification, even if she doesn't click it, her brain registers a micro-threat or a micro-opportunity. Both require a small spike in cortisol to prepare the body for action. Recent data from the National Institutes of Health (NIH) indicates that the average US smartphone user remains in a state of low-grade fight or flight for up to 16 hours a day. This has profound potential outcomes for long-term health, including disrupted sleep patterns, increased systemic inflammation, and a significant reduction in deep focus capability. We are seeing a case study in real time of an entire population losing the ability to enter phase for deep sleep because the brain is subconsciously waiting for the next digital ping. Furthermore, we must address the social comparison trap, which has been supercharged by the AI-driven filters of 2026. Sarah isn't just looking at her friends' best lives. She is looking at AI-augmented versions of their best lives. A study from the University of California, Berkeley recently found that the brain's self-referential processing center, the part that helps us understand who we are in relation to others, is unable to distinguish between a real human image and a highly filtered, algorithmically optimized one. When Sarah compares her raw morning face in the mirror to the optimized images on her screen, her brain registers a status deficit. This triggers the release of more cortisol and a drop in serotonin, leading to a compulsive need to interact with the platform to gain back social status through likes or shares. It is a race where the finish line is moved every time you take a step. Imagine if you were trying to read a book while someone periodically threw a handful of confetti in your face. That is what happens to your cognitive load every time you switch from a task to your phone. US studies on task switching cost show that it takes the average person approximately 23 minutes to return to a state of deep focus after a single interruption. If Sarah checks her phone only 3 times an hour, she is effectively never in a state of deep focus. Her entire professional and personal life is being lived in the shallows. This is not just about lost productivity. It is about the erosion of the self. When we lose our ability to focus, we lose our ability to form complex thoughts, to empathize deeply, and to engage in the kind of slow, deliberate thinking that defines human intelligence. We are standing at a crossroads in 2026. The technology has become so sophisticated that the user is no longer the person holding the phone. The user is the algorithm, and the human is the data source being refined. We have explored the dopamine loops, the haptic triggers, and the cortisol spikes that keep us tethered to the glass. But there is an even deeper layer to this architecture. It isn't just about how the phone makes you feel. It's about how the platform is beginning to predict your thoughts before you even have them. In the next part, we are going to dive into the algorithmic mirror. We will look at how 2026 AI models are now using your front-facing camera to track micro-expressions and pupillary dilation to adjust your feed in real time based on your emotional state. If you think the For You page is addictive now, wait until you see how it reacts when it knows exactly when you are feeling lonely, bored, or insecure. The mirror is starting to look back, and what it sees is more than just your data, it is your future behavior. To understand how this future behavior is being mapped, we have to look at the emergence of effective computing in the US social media landscape of 2026. This is no longer a fringe science relegated to academic laboratories. It is the fundamental engine of the modern attention economy. For years, platforms relied on what you did, the posts you liked, the accounts you followed, and the searches you typed. But in 2026, the algorithm has moved from tracking your actions to tracking your biological reactions. Consider the case of Marcus, a 28-year-old financial analyst living in Chicago. It is 11:45 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Marcus is lying in bed, his face illuminated by the cold blue light of his flagship smartphone. He believes he is in control of his scroll, but the device in his hand is performing a level of analysis that Marcus is completely unaware of. The front-facing camera on Marcus's phone is not just an aperture for selfies. It is a high-resolution biometric sensor. In 2026, standard smartphone hardware includes advanced infrared depth sensing and high-speed image processing units capable of detecting micro-expressions, facial movements that last only a fraction of a second. As Marcus scrolls, the platform is looking for the subtle contraction of the corrugator supercilii muscle, which indicates a slight frown of confusion or disapproval. It is also watching for the activation of the zygomatic major muscle, which signals a genuine or even a fleeting smirk of amusement. A 2025 study from the MIT Media Lab, which surveyed over 10,000 US participants, revealed that these involuntary facial shifts are 95% more accurate at predicting a user's future engagement than an intentional like or share. If Marcus's face shows a hint of boredom, the algorithm immediately adjusts the saturation, the audio frequency, or the content type of the next video to jolt him back into an aroused state. This is the birth of the emotional feedback loop. Imagine if every time your heart skipped a beat or your eyes widened in surprise, a massive supercomputer in a data center in Virginia took a note. That is the current reality for the average US social media user. The technology also monitors pupillary dilation. In the field of neuromarketing, it is a well-established fact that our pupils dilate when we encounter something that triggers a high state of emotional arousal, whether that is fear, excitement, or attraction. When Marcus sees a specific type of headline regarding the 2026 economic forecast, his pupils dilate by a fraction of a millimeter. The smartphone sensors, capable of sub-millimeter tracking, register this as a high-stakes engagement point. Even if Marcus scrolls past the post because he finds it stressful, the algorithm knows he is emotionally tethered to it. It calculates that he is more likely to stay on the app if it feeds him more content that keeps his cortisol levels slightly elevated, as stress is a powerful driver of compulsive information seeking. Recent historical trends in US technology development show that this biometric tracking has become seamless. We have moved past the era where a phone would ask for permission to use the camera for every specific feature. In 2026, through the fine print of user agreements, persistent emotional monitoring has become an industry standard under the guise of enhancing user experience. Researchers at the University of Southern California have termed this affective engineering. The goal is to create a bespoke psychological environment where the user never feels a natural stopping cue, because the interface is constantly pivoting to match their fluctuating emotional baseline. If the system detects that Marcus is becoming frustrated, perhaps through a more aggressive tapping pattern on the screen, it might serve him a high-reward, comforting video like a nostalgic clip from a show he watched in his childhood, to soothe the frustration and prevent him from closing the app. Step by step, the algorithm builds a digital twin of your emotional vulnerabilities. Step 1. The collection of baseline data. The app observes you when you are at your most neutral. Step 2. The stimulus phase. It feeds you a variety of content to see which micro-expressions are triggered by specific themes. Step 3. The predictive modeling. It begins to anticipate which content will cause a specific chemical release in your brain. By the time Marcus has spent 30 minutes on the app, the system has a more accurate read on his current mood than his own spouse does. It knows that he is feeling a specific blend of professional anxiety and social loneliness that makes him susceptible to a certain type of long-form video essay. This is the ultimate open loop. A system that asks a question about your emotional state and then promises to answer it with the next piece of content. The potential outcomes of this level of manipulation are profound. We are seeing a historical trend where the internal emotional life of the American public is being externalized and monetized. In previous decades, your moods were private. If you were sad, you might go for a walk or call a friend. In 2026, your sadness is a data point that triggers a specific advertising funnel designed to sell you comfort goods or keep you engaged with high-drama content. Case studies from digital detox clinics in California have shown that individuals who are exposed to persistent emotional AI report a sense of being hollowed out. They feel as though their own emotions are no longer theirs, but are instead buttons being pushed by an invisible hand. One patient in a 2025 study described it as feeling like a puppet where the strings were made of light and code. Furthermore, we must consider the physiological toll of this constant emotional mirroring. When an AI is constantly adjusting to keep you in a state of high arousal, your autonomic nervous system never gets a chance to reset. The sympathetic nervous system, responsible for the fight-or-flight response, is kept in a state of perpetual activation. This leads to what U.S. health researchers call digital exhaustion. It is a state where the brain is so oversaturated with tailored emotional stimuli that it begins to lose the ability to regulate its own moods. We are seeing a rise in cases where users feel a profound sense of emptiness the moment they put their phones down because the real world does not react to their micro-expressions. The real world is indifferent to their pupil dilation. The real world does not offer an infinite scroll of perfectly timed emotional rewards. As we look deeper into this masterclass, we have to ask, who owns this emotional data? In the U.S. legal landscape of 2026, the battle over biometric privacy is just beginning. But while the courts catch up, the algorithms are already miles ahead. They are not just predicting what you will buy, they are predicting how you will feel 3 hours from now. They are setting the stage for part 4 of our deep dive. Up until now, we have discussed how the screen interacts with your eyes and your face. But what happens when the connection becomes even more direct? What happens when we move from the external sensors to the internal architecture of the brain itself? In the next part, we are going to explore the phenomenon of neuroplasticity and the rewiring of the American mind. We will examine the shocking 2026 data that shows how the actual physical structure of the human brain is changing after years of social media exposure. We will look at the thinning of the gray matter in the areas responsible for impulse control and the thickening of the pathways that drive compulsive behavior. Is it possible that we are not just using these platforms, but that they are physically rebuilding us? The answer lies in the latest U.S. neurological scans, and it is a reality that will change the way you think about every second you spend online. The concept of neuroplasticity was once hailed as the ultimate proof of human potential. The idea that our brains are not static blocks of granite, but rather dynamic, living tissues that can adapt and rewire themselves throughout our lives. However, in 2026, U.S. neurological research is uncovering the darker side of this adaptability. If the brain is plastic, it can be molded into a shape that serves the interests of a platform rather than the interests of the individual. To see this in action, let us look at David, a 24-year-old graduate student in Seattle. David has grown up as a digital native, receiving his first smartphone at the age of 11. For over a decade, his neural architecture has been subjected to a high-frequency, high-arousal digital environment for an average of 6 to 8 hours every single day. When David sits in a modern functional MRI machine in 2026, the scans do not just show activity, they show structural transformation. The most alarming finding in recent U.S. studies, including a landmark 2025 report from the University of Michigan, is the measurable thinning of the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. This is the executive suite of the brain, the area responsible for impulse control, long-term planning, and the ability to filter out irrelevant stimuli. In David's brain, this region is physically smaller and less dense than that of a comparable adult from the pre-smartphone era. This thinning is a direct result of neural pruning. Because the social media environment does the work of filtering and focusing for him, David's brain has essentially decided that maintaining a robust prefrontal cortex is a waste of metabolic energy. The biological brake system of his mind is failing. Imagine if you were trying to drive a high-performance sports car, but every year, the manufacturer subtly weakened the brake pads while simultaneously making the accelerator pedal more sensitive. This is the physiological reality of social media addiction. While David's prefrontal cortex is thinning, his striatum, the part of the brain's reward system that responds to dopamine, is becoming hyperdeveloped. Recent scans show that the pathways between the ventral tegmental area and the nucleus accumbens in habitual social media users are significantly more myelinated. Myelin is the fatty insulation that wraps around nerve fibers to speed up electrical signals. In David's brain, the craving signal moves at lightning speed, while the stop signal from his prefrontal cortex is slow and muffled. This structural imbalance explains why he can be fully aware that he needs to study for his finals, yet find his hand reaching for his phone before his conscious mind has even registered the desire. This process is what researchers are now calling the myelination of compulsion. Every time David scrolls, every time he receives a notification, he is reinforcing these high-speed pathways. It is a step-by-step reconstruction of his cognitive hierarchy. Step 1 is the frequent activation of the reward circuit. Step 2 is the structural reinforcement through increased myelination. Step 3 is the atrophy of the neglected control centers. By 2026, this is not just a behavioral habit. It is a hardwired physiological state. Data from the National Institute on Drug Abuse has shown that the structural changes in the brains of heavy social media users bear a striking resemblance to those found in individuals with substance use disorders. The brain does not distinguish between a chemical hit and a digital one. It only responds to the frequency and intensity of the reward. Furthermore, we must examine the Google effect, or transactive memory, which has evolved significantly by 2026. Because David knows that all information is instantly accessible through his device, his hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for memory consolidation, is showing signs of decreased activity during learning tasks. A 2026 study from Columbia University found that when U.S. students are told that information will be saved on a computer, they are significantly less likely to remember the information itself, though they are very good at remembering where to find it. This is effectively the outsourcing of human memory to a third-party server. Over time, this leads to a brain drain phenomenon. A case study involving 500 young professionals in New York City demonstrated that even the mere presence of a smartphone on a desk, even if it is turned off and face down, reduces available cognitive capacity. The brain is using a portion of its processing power just to actively ignore the phone and suppress the urge to check it. This constant background drain leads to a state of permanent cognitive fragmentation. David finds it nearly impossible to engage in deep work, a term coined by Cal Newport that has become a critical survival skill in the 2026 economy. Because his brain has been rewired to expect a new stimulus every few seconds, his attentional blink, the time it takes for the brain to refocus after seeing a stimulus, has become elongated. He is living in a state of continuous partial attention. Historical trends over the last decade show a steady decline in the average length of time a U.S. college student can focus on a single task without an electronic interruption, dropping from 2.5 minutes in 2012 to a staggering 47 seconds in 2025. To understand the potential outcomes, imagine if David's brain were a forest. The paths he takes to check his notifications have been paved into 6-lane highways, reinforced with concrete and steel. The paths he takes to engage in deep, critical thinking or long-term memory retrieval have become overgrown with weeds and brambles, nearly impossible to navigate. This structural reality makes the choice to stay off social media feel less like a matter of willpower and more like an attempt to climb a sheer cliff face with no equipment. The environment is designed to be a downhill slide, while the path to focus is a steep, uphill battle against one's own biology. What is perhaps most concerning in the 2026 data is the impact on the default mode network, DMN. This is the part of the brain that is active when we are not focused on the outside world, when we are daydreaming, reflecting on ourselves, or thinking about the future. In healthy individuals, the DMN is essential for creativity and a sense of self. However, in social media-addicted brains, the DMN is being interrupted before it can even engage. Every micro moment of boredom that would normally trigger the DMN is now filled with a quick check of the phone. We are effectively losing the ability to be alone with our thoughts. Researchers at Harvard have warned that this could lead to a generation-wide deficit in original thought and self-awareness. If you never let your mind wander, you never give it the chance to discover where it wants to go. The rewriting of the American mind is not a metaphor. It is a documented biological event. We are seeing a shift where the brain is becoming more reactive and less reflective. We are becoming more efficient at processing short bursts of information, but less capable of understanding complex systems. We are seeing the erosion of the internal locus of control, where individuals feel that their lives are directed by external forces, in this case the algorithm, rather than their own intentions. But as profound as these structural changes are, they are only one part of the equation. While David's brain is being physically altered, his social world is being digitally reconstructed. We have talked about what is happening inside the skull, but what is happening between people? Is the technology that was promised to bring us together actually driving us into a state of profound systemic loneliness? In the next part, we are going to look at the connection paradox. We will analyze 2026 data on the loneliness epidemic in the US and explore how digital pseudo-connection is tricking our evolutionary biology into thinking we are part of a tribe, while our actual social muscles are atrophying. We are going to look at why, in a world where we are more connected than ever, more Americans report feeling completely alone than at any other point in recorded history. The answer involves a phenomenon known as social snacking and the devastating impact of the like button on human empathy. To understand the devastating reality of the connection paradox, let us look at the life of Chloe, a 21-year-old university student in Los Angeles in the year 2026. On the surface, Chloe is the most connected human being in history. She has 4,000 followers on her primary visual platform, 600 friends on her professional network, and is a member of 32 different group chats. Her phone buzzes with a notification every 45 seconds. By all traditional metrics of social density, Chloe should be thriving. Yet, a 2026 study from the UCLA Center for Digital Humanities found that individuals like Chloe, Gen Z and Gen Alpha Americans with the highest digital engagement report the highest levels of subjective isolation ever recorded in the United States. This is the heart of the connection paradox. We are drowning in data but starving for presence. Giddy images. The mechanism driving this isolation is a behavioral phenomenon that US researchers have termed social snacking. To understand this, imagine you are physically starving. Your body needs a complex balance of proteins, fats, and vitamins to function. Instead of a nutritious meal, you are given a single grain of sugar every 10 minutes. The sugar provides a temporary spike in energy. It tricks your tongue into thinking food is arriving, but your cells remain in a state of starvation. In 2026, the like button, the heart emoji, and the short-form comment are the digital grains of sugar. When Chloe receives a like on a photo she posted, her brain receives a microdose of dopamine. This is the snack. It provides a momentary sense of being seen, but it lacks the biochemical depth of real-world interaction. In a physical interaction, your brain produces oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. Oxytocin is released through eye contact, shared laughter, synchronized body language, and physical touch. It is the chemical that lowers cortisol and creates a sense of safety and belonging. Recent 2025 studies utilizing wearable biometric sensors have shown that digital interactions, no matter how frequent, produce almost zero oxytocin. We are essentially snacking on dopamine-driven validation, while our oxytocin receptors are left empty. Chloe spends her entire day chasing the high of the snack, but because she is not getting the nourishment of true bonding, she feels more alone at the end of 1,000 interactions than she did at the beginning of the day. This leads us to the systematic erosion of the mirror neuron system. Human beings are biologically wired for empathy through a specialized set of neurons that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action. When you see a friend in pain, your mirror neurons fire, allowing you to feel a shadow of their distress. This is the foundation of human compassion. However, a 2026 longitudinal study from the University of Chicago has revealed a disturbing historical trend. The more time US youth spend communicating through text and static images, the less active their mirror neuron systems become. Because a screen removes the micro-expressions, the tone of voice, and the pheromonal cues of another human being, the brain begins to treat other people as objects or content, rather than sentient beings. Imagine if every time you spoke to someone, they were wearing a porcelain mask that never moved. Eventually, you would stop trying to read their emotions. You would become colder, more analytical, and less empathetic. This is exactly what is happening to the digital social fabric of the United States. In 2026, we see this manifest as the empathy gap. When Chloe sees a controversial post or a video of someone in distress, her first instinct is often to categorize it, judge it, or scroll past it, rather than feel for the person involved. The like button has quantified social value, turning human relationships into a competitive scoreboard. Empathy is a slow, expensive biological process. The algorithm demands a fast, cheap reaction. Case studies from the 2026 National Health Survey show that this quantification of social life has created a new form of status anxiety. In the pre-digital era, your social status was determined by your immediate tribe of perhaps 150 people, the Dunbar number. In 2026, Chloe is subconsciously comparing her social capital to a global pool of millions. Every time she posts, she is submitting herself to a real-time public audit of her worth. If a post gets fewer likes than her average, U.S. studies show her brain registers this as a social rejection event. The brain processes social rejection in the same area it processes physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex. For the modern American, a low-engagement post isn't just a minor digital blip. It is a painful biological signal that they are losing their place in the tribe. This creates a step-by-step descent into what researchers call digital pseudo-connection. Step 1. You feel a pang of loneliness. Step 2. Instead of reaching out for a high-effort, high-reward interaction like a phone call or a visit, you reach for the low-effort, low-reward interaction of scrolling. Step 3. You engage in social snacking by liking and commenting on superficial content. Step 4. The dopamine spike masks the loneliness for a few minutes. Step 5. The spike fades, leaving you with a dopamine crash and an even deeper sense of isolation because the underlying need for oxytocin was never met. By 2026, the average U.S. adult is repeating this cycle over 50 times a day. Furthermore, we must look at the impact on cognitive empathy versus affective empathy. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand another person's perspective logically. Affective empathy is the ability to feel what they feel. Social media, through its text-heavy and polarized nature, is training Americans to have high cognitive empathy for their in-group and zero affective empathy for their out-group. We are becoming experts at understanding why our side is right and the other side is wrong, but we are losing the biological ability to feel the humanity of those who disagree with us. A 2025 study titled "The Polarization of the American Heart" found that the lack of face-to-face nuance in digital debate has led to a 30% increase in social hostility metrics across all major U.S. demographics. The potential outcomes of this empathy deficit are not just social, they are physical. Loneliness is a significant predictor of all-cause mortality, with a health impact comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. By replacing nourishing social bonds with digital snacks, we are seeing a historical trend of increased systemic inflammation and decreased heart rate variability among U.S. adults. Chloe might feel like she is just checking her feed, but she is actually participating in a lifestyle that is physically aging her nervous system. We are built to be together, but we are being conditioned to be alone together. But the connection paradox is only the entry point into a much deeper level of control. If the algorithm can starve you of empathy and make you feel isolated, it has created the perfect psychological vacuum. And into that vacuum, it can pour something far more potent than mere likes and comments. It can begin to shape your very perception of reality. In the next part, we are going to explore the rabbit hole, algorithmic radicalization, and the death of shared truth. We will look at the 2026 data on how the recommendation engine uses your feelings of isolation to pull you into increasingly extreme information silos. We will examine the step-by-step process of how a search for a simple cooking recipe can lead to a total overhaul of your political and social worldview in less than 48 hours. The algorithm doesn't just want your attention anymore. It wants to build the world you live in. And in that world, the truth is whatever keeps you scrolling. To see how the algorithm constructs this private reality, let us follow the journey of James, a 45-year-old high school teacher in Columbus, Ohio, in the spring of 2026. James is a moderate, well-educated individual who prides himself on his critical thinking. His descent into a digital rabbit hole does not begin with a search for extremist content. It begins with a legitimate, everyday concern: the rising cost of local utility bills. James watches a 3-minute video titled "Why Your Electric Bill is So High." This is the entry point. The algorithm, having tracked James's historical trends of engagement, knows that he is currently in a state of mild financial stress. It doesn't just show him more videos about utility bills, it begins to test his outrage threshold. The architecture of the recommendation engine is built on a mathematical principle called the engagement to outrage ratio. Recent 2026 data from the MIT Initiative on the Digital Economy has shown that content that triggers high arousal negative emotions, specifically anger, indignation, and fear, is 70% more likely to be shared and produces 3 times the dwell time of neutral or positive content. This is a biological exploit. For James's ancestors, anger and fear were survival signals that demanded immediate, undivided attention. In the digital age, the algorithm mimics these survival signals to keep James glued to the screen. By the second hour of his session, James is no longer seeing videos about utility bills. He is seeing videos about systemic corruption in the energy sector, which then lead to videos about global reset theories, which finally culminate in content that suggests his very way of life is under an immediate, existential threat. Step by step, the algorithm is performing what US sociologists call epistemic fragmentation. Step 1. Isolate a grievance. The algorithm finds a topic that James already cares about. Step 2. Amplify the stakes. It serves him content that makes the grievance feel like a catastrophe. Step 3. Prune the dissent. This is the creation of the echo chamber. In 2026, the AI-driven feed is so precise that it can detect when James is about to lose interest due to content fatigue. At the exact moment James might put his phone down, the system injects a contrarian hook, a video that appears to challenge his new view but is actually a straw man argument designed to be easily defeated, thereby reinforcing his new belief even further. This is a sophisticated application of the backfire effect, where exposure to weak opposing evidence actually strengthens an individual's original conviction. Imagine if every time you walk down the street, the signs on the buildings changed based on what you were thinking. If you were worried about crime, every store would suddenly be a security firm. If you were worried about health, every window would display a medical crisis. In this scenario, you would quickly lose your sense of what the real world looks like. This is James's reality in 2026. Because his digital feed is entirely personalized, his shared truth with his neighbors is dying. A 2025 case study from the Pew Research Center titled The Great Divergence found that 2 people living in the same apartment building in a U.S. city can now inhabit 2 entirely different factual universes. One neighbor's feed tells them the economy is booming. The other neighbor's feed tells them the economy has already collapsed. This isn't just a difference of opinion. It is a difference of perceived reality. The potential outcomes of this death of shared truth are devastating for social cohesion. When James goes to his school board meeting, he isn't just bringing his perspective. He is bringing a pre-validated set of facts that have been reinforced thousands of times by his algorithm. He is no longer capable of perspective taking, a key component of the empathy we discussed in Part 5. Recent U.S. studies on cognitive rigidity show that long-term exposure to these algorithmic silos leads to a physical change in the way the brain processes new information. The anterior cingulate cortex, which helps us detect when our expectations don't match reality, becomes less active. James's brain has been trained to reject anything that doesn't fit the pattern. He has become an information narcissist, only capable of seeing his own digital reflection. Furthermore, we must address the illusory truth effect. This is a psychological phenomenon where people tend to believe information is true after repeated exposure, even if they originally knew it was false. In 2026, the sheer volume of content means James sees the same false narrative, repeated by 20 different, independent creators. His brain evolved to use repetition as a proxy for truth, concludes that the narrative must be factual. U.S. researchers at Stanford have found that it takes only 3 exposures to a false claim for the brain to start treating it as a probable fact. For James, who spends 4 hours a day in his silo, he is being exposed to these claims hundreds of times a week. The truth has been replaced by consistency. This process is supercharged by the tribal belonging instinct. In a world where James feels isolated and lonely, the connection paradox, the algorithm offers him a tribe. He joins a digital community of people who all believe the same extreme theories he has been fed. This provides a massive surge of oxytocin and dopamine. He feels like a seeker of truth, rather than a victim of an addiction. This is identity fusion, where James's sense of self becomes inseparable from the digital tribe's ideology. At this point, asking James to put down his phone is no longer asking him to stop a habit. It is asking him to commit social suicide and abandon his only remaining support system. Case studies of algorithmic deradicalization in the US have shown that it takes months of intense, face-to-face intervention to break these digital spells. The algorithm has essentially hacked the human need for certainty. In an uncertain world, the algorithm provides a clear enemy, a clear cause, and a constant stream of validation. It is the ultimate psychological sedative. By 2026, we are seeing historical trends where the information environment is considered a primary driver of US public health outcomes, as the stress and paranoia generated by these rabbit holes lead to measurable increases in cortisol-related illnesses. James is not a weak person. He is a person whose evolutionary hardware is being run on 2026 predatory software. He is trapped in a loop where his own curiosity is used against him. Every click is a vote for his own continued manipulation. But the rabbit hole doesn't just change how James thinks, it starts to change how he lives. It moves from his mind into his physical body. The stress of the outrage engine isn't just a mental state. It is a biological tax that he pays every single day. As we conclude this part of the deep dive, we have to look at the physical toll of this constant digital bombardment. We have seen how the algorithm reshapes the mind and the social circle. But what is it doing to your internal organs? What happens to your heart rate, your digestion, and your very cells when you are kept in a state of algorithmic high alert for 16 hours a day? In the next part, we are going to explore the digital cortisol, blue light, and the physical erosion of the user. We will look at 2026 studies on smartphone-induced hypervigilance, and the shocking link between social media addiction and the rise of early-onset chronic fatigue in the US. We will examine how the blue light of your screen isn't just keeping you awake, it's actively confusing your metabolic clock. Your phone isn't just in your hand, it's under your skin, and the physical cost is higher than you think. To understand the physical erosion of the modern American, we must observe the daily physiological profile of Michael, a 38-year-old remote graphic designer living in Denver, Colorado. It is 2026, and Michael represents a growing demographic of US adults who are physically manifesting the consequences of a decade-long immersion in a high-arousal digital environment. While the psychological shifts we have discussed are profound, they are fundamentally rooted in Michael's biology. His smartphone is not just a portal to information, it is a remote control for his endocrine system. The most immediate physical impact is the chronic activation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the HPA axis. This is Michael's internal alarm system. In the natural world, this system was designed to be activated sparingly, perhaps when Michael's ancestors encountered a predator. In 2026, Michael's HPA axis is being triggered every time his phone vibrates with a notification or an algorithmic news alert. Recent US studies from the Mayo Clinic have identified a phenomenon known as digital hypervigilance. Even when Michael isn't looking at his phone, his brain is in a state of low-grade scan mode. His body is constantly producing small bursts of cortisol and adrenaline in anticipation of the next digital event. This chronic elevation of cortisol has a cascading effect on Michael's systemic health. In a state of high stress, the body prioritizes immediate survival over long-term maintenance. This means Michael's immune system, digestive system, and reproductive health are all being subtly suppressed to maintain a state of digital readiness. 2026 longitudinal data from the National Institutes of Health indicates a direct correlation between high smartphone engagement and a 40% increase in systemic inflammatory markers among US adults. Michael feels this as a general sense of malaise, frequent brain fog, and a slower recovery time from minor illnesses. His body thinks it is in a perpetual state of emergency because the algorithm is designed to keep him in a state of perpetual urgency. Imagine if you were trying to sleep while someone periodically flashed a high-intensity spotlight in your eyes. This is effectively what Michael does to his brain every night. We must dive into the specific biology of blue light and the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN. When the short-wavelength blue light from Michael's screen, specifically the light in the 460 to 480 nanometer range, hits the melanopsin-containing ganglion cells in his retina, it sends a direct signal to his SCN, the master clock of his brain. This signal tells his brain that it is high noon, regardless of the actual time in Denver. This suppression of melatonin is not a minor inconvenience, it is a metabolic catastrophe. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone, it is a powerful antioxidant and a key regulator of cellular repair, a process known as autophagy. A 2026 study published in the Journal of Pineal Research found that the average US social media user suppresses their natural melatonin production by up to 85%. For Michael, This means that even when he does fall asleep, his body is not performing the essential nightly cleaning of his neural and cellular structures. Over years, this leads to the physical erosion we are discussing. Michael is physically aging faster at a cellular level because his digital habits have broken his biological relationship with the sun. Furthermore, we are seeing the rise of what US researchers call technological metabolic syndrome. When Michael experiences digital outrage or FOMO, fear of missing out, his body releases glucose into his bloodstream to provide energy for a physical response that never happens. He is sitting on his couch, but his liver is pumping out sugar as if he were about to run a sprint. Because he is sedentary, this glucose is not burned. Instead, his body must release insulin to manage the spike. Over time, this constant false alarm cycle leads to insulin resistance. 2026 data from the American Diabetes Association has highlighted a shocking historical trend: a surge in type 2 diabetes cases among U.S. adults who are otherwise active and eat a balanced diet, but who report high levels of high-conflict social media use. The stress of the scroll is literally changing Michael's blood chemistry. We must also look at the structural erosion of the frame. Michael spends approximately 5 hours a day in a physical position known as the digital C. His head is tilted forward, his shoulders are rounded, and his chest is collapsed. This is more than just bad posture. It is a mechanical failure of the human structure. For every inch Michael's head moves forward from his center of gravity, it adds an additional 10 pounds of pressure on his cervical spine. At a 45-degree tilt, Michael's neck is supporting 60 pounds of weight. This physical compression has a direct impact on the vagus nerve, the superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve is responsible for the rest and digest state. When Michael is hunched over his phone, he is physically compressing the space through which the vagus nerve travels, while also restricting his diaphragm and shallowing his breath. This sends a physical signal to his brain that he is in a state of distress. It is a closed loop. His mind is stressed by the content, which changes his posture, which then physically signals his brain to stay stressed. Michael is trapped in a body that is biologically incapable of relaxation as long as he is in that posture. Recent U.S. case studies on early-onset chronic fatigue have found that this combination of HPA axis exhaustion, melatonin suppression, and vagal compression creates a state of biological burnout. Michael feels tired but wired. He is exhausted because his cells aren't repairing, but he can't rest because his nervous system is stuck in an on position. In 2026, we are seeing a historical trend where physical therapy clinics across the United States are being flooded with digital casualties. Individuals in their 20s and 30s with the spinal wear and tear of 60-year-old manual laborers and the hormonal profiles of high-stress combat veterans. To understand the potential outcomes, imagine if Michael's body were a battery. Every day, the algorithm is draining that battery faster than it can be recharged. By mid-afternoon, Michael is running on emergency power, which in human terms means caffeine, sugar, and more digital stimulation to keep the adrenaline flowing. This is the physical erosion of the user. Michael is being consumed by his tools. But why is this happening? Is it just a side effect of bad design? Or is there a more calculated reason why Michael's biology is being exploited so ruthlessly? To answer that, we have to look past the pixels and the hormones and look at the ledger. We have to look at the money. In the next part, we are going to explore the attention auction. How your biology became the world's most valuable commodity. We will pull back the curtain on the 2026 high-frequency attention trading markets, where your specific neurological vulnerabilities are bought and sold in milliseconds. We will look at how the cost per click has evolved into a cost per dopamine hit, and why in the global economy, Michael's exhaustion is actually a profitable metric. The economy of the self is being liquidated, and we are going to show you exactly who is holding the bill. To understand how Michael's exhaustion is converted into capital, we must enter the invisible marketplace that surrounds him every time he unlocks his screen. In the United States of 2026, this is known as the attention auction. While Michael sees a simple feed of images and short-form videos, the back end of the application is running a high-frequency trading operation that makes Wall Street look sluggish. As Michael scrolls, his device is broadcasting a packet of data to thousands of servers across the country. This packet does not just contain his age, location, and gender. In 2026, thanks to the biometric integration we discussed, this packet includes what researchers call a neurostate snapshot. This snapshot includes Michael's current heart rate variability, his pupil dilation, and his recent scroll velocity. This data allows the algorithm to calculate Michael's vulnerability index in real time. If the data suggests Michael is currently experiencing a dopamine dip, perhaps because he has been scrolling for 40 minutes and his brain is reaching a state of diminishing returns, his value on the open market actually increases. Why? Because a brain in a dopamine-depleted state is significantly more prone to impulsive decision-making. U.S. behavioral economists have identified this as the exhaustion premium. Advertisers are willing to pay more to reach Michael when he is tired, bored, or lonely, because that is when his cognitive defenses are at their lowest. Imagine if every time you felt a pang of sadness, a silent bell rang in a room full of the world's most aggressive salespeople, and they all began shouting prices for the right to speak to you at that exact second. This is the reality of real-time neurobidding. In the 50 milliseconds it takes for Michael to flick his thumb upward, an auction has occurred. A sportswear brand, a fast food delivery service, and a mobile gaming company have all bid for the next slot in his feed. The winner isn't just the one who bid the most money. It is the one whose content is predicted by the AI to trigger the highest possible neural engagement for Michael's specific current state. Historical trends in the U.S. advertising industry show a radical shift in metrics. In 2010, the industry focused on impressions. By 2018, the focus moved to click-through rates. By 2026, the primary metric is the cost per dopamine hit. This is a measure of how much it costs an advertiser to trigger a measurable neurochemical response in the user. If Michael's brain shows a spike in activity in the reward center when he sees a specific type of high-saturation advertisement, the platform logs that as a successful delivery. The platform isn't selling Michael's time. It is selling access to his neurochemistry. A 2026 case study from the Wharton School of Business examined a major U.S. e-commerce platform that utilized effective pricing. They found that when users were in a state of high digital fatigue, they were 60% less likely to compare prices and 80% more likely to opt for one-click purchasing. For the platform, Michael's exhaustion is not a bug. It is a feature of the business model. The more tired he is, the more profitable he becomes. This creates a perverse incentive. The platform is financially motivated to keep Michael in a state of low-grade dissatisfaction. If Michael were to feel truly satisfied and connected in the real world, he would put his phone down. To keep the yield high, the algorithm must ensure Michael stays in the shallows, perpetually searching for a reward that is always one more scroll away. This is what we mean by the liquidation of the self. Every aspect of Michael's internal life, his fears, his secret desires, his late-night anxieties, is being converted into a structured data set that can be auctioned off. Step by step, the human is being stripped of their mystery and turned into a predictable asset. Step 1. Continuous biometric monitoring. Step 2. The creation of a psychographic shadow that predicts behavior with 99% accuracy. Step 3. The monetization of that shadow through high-frequency auctions. By 2026, the user has effectively become a biological battery that powers the trillion-dollar attention economy. Consider the potential outcomes of this system on a national scale. U.S. studies on market-induced cognitive dissonance suggest that when an entire population is subjected to this level of neurotargeting, the very concept of free will begins to erode. If Michael's choices are being nudged by an AI that knows his biological triggers better than he does, is Michael truly making a choice? Or is he simply responding to a stimulus that was mathematically guaranteed to produce a specific result? A 2025 report from the Federal Trade Commission warned that neurosovereignty, the right to one's own mental processes, is the most significant civil rights issue of the mid-20s. Imagine if your own brain were a house, and you discovered that thousands of strangers had the keys to the front door, and were constantly rearranging the furniture to make you stay in the kitchen and eat more snacks. You would feel violated. You would feel that your home was no longer yours. This is what the attention auction does to the internal architecture of the American mind. It turns the most private spaces of human consciousness into a public marketplace. The bill that Michael is holding is not a financial one, although the hidden costs of social media are real. The bill is the loss of his cognitive agency. He pays an attention debt, a state where his ability to focus on his own goals is constantly being foreclosed upon by the platforms he uses. Every hour spent in the auction loop is an hour taken away from his human capital, his ability to learn, to create, and to build meaningful real-world wealth and relationships. In 2026, we are seeing a historical trend where the wealth gap is increasingly becoming an attention gap. Those who can afford to opt out of the auction are the new elite. while the rest of the population is kept in a state of perpetual digital sharecropping. Case studies from digital sanctuary communities in the Pacific Northwest show that when people are removed from the auction environment, their baseline stress levels drop by 50% within 7 days. Their executive function scores return to pre-addiction levels. This proves that the damage is not always permanent, but it is persistent as long as the connection is maintained. Michael is currently living in a system designed to prevent this recovery at all costs. The exit ramps are being systematically removed. As we reach the final stages of this masterclass, we have unmasked the machine. We have seen the biological hijacking, the physical erosion, and the economic liquidation of the user. But understanding the trap is only the first step. The question that remains for Michael and for you is, how do you fight a machine that knows your own mind better than you do? How do you reclaim your attention when it has already been auctioned off 1,000,000 times today? In the next part, we are going to explore the Great Rejuvenation, tactical countermeasures, and the science of neural reclamation. We will move from the analysis of the problem to the architecture of the solution. We will look at the 2026 data on dopamine fasting 2.0, analog interventions, and the specific neuroprotective habits that US experts are using to rebuild the prefrontal cortex. This isn't about quitting the internet, it's about reoccupying your own mind. We are going to give you the blueprint to take back the keys to your house. The auction is still running, but it is time for you to walk off the block. To understand the architecture of recovery, we must observe the transformation of Elena, a 29-year-old middle school teacher in Philadelphia during the autumn of 2026. Elena is a participant in what US researchers are calling the Neural Reclamation Project, a large-scale clinical study aimed at reversing the structural brain changes caused by chronic social media consumption. For the last 5 parts of this masterclass, we have analyzed the trap. Now we analyze the escape. This is not about a temporary digital detox or a weekend away from your phone. Those are historical trends that failed because they did not address the underlying biology. Neural reclamation is a systematic, step-by-step re-engineering of the user's relationship with reality. The first pillar of Elena's recovery is the restoration of the prefrontal cortex, or the PFC, as we discussed in Part 4. Chronic scrolling leads to a measurable thinning of the gray matter in this region. To reverse this, Elena does not just put her phone away. She engages in active attentional weightlifting. A 2026 study from the Harvard Center for Brain Science found that the most effective way to thicken the gray matter in the PFC is through the consumption of high-friction information. For Elena, this means 30 minutes of uninterrupted reading of physical long-form printed text every morning. The science behind this is specific. Unlike the frictionless scroll of an algorithm, a physical book provides 0 dopamine spikes. It requires the brain to maintain a single attentional thread without external reinforcement. Step 1. Remove all digital devices from the room. Step 2. Set a physical timer for 30 minutes. Step 3. Engage with complex narrative or analytical text that requires the brain to build internal mental models. Case studies of US professionals who adopted this monastic morning routine showed a 25% improvement in executive function scores within only 21 days. Elena's brain is being physically forced to rebuild the top-down control pathways that the algorithm spent years dismantling. The second pillar is the implementation of dopamine fasting 2.0. In the early 2020s, this was a niche trend in Silicon Valley. By 2026, it has been refined into a clinical protocol used to address the downregulation of dopamine receptors. Elena's goal is to raise her dopamine baseline. To do this, she follows a schedule of intentional boredom. Imagine if your brain were a radio tuned to a station that is constantly screaming. If you want to hear the subtle music of real life again, you have to turn the volume down to 0 for a while. Every afternoon between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m., Elena engages in no input time. No podcasts, no music, no screens, no reading. She sits, she walks, or she performs a manual task like gardening or cleaning. US neurological scans of individuals in 2026 who practice intentional boredom show a gradual upregulation of D2 dopamine receptors. Because the brain is no longer being flooded with artificial spikes, it becomes sensitive once again to the subtle rewards of the physical world. The smell of coffee, the texture of the wind, the nuance of a conversation. Elena is reclaiming her ability to feel satisfied without a screen. This is a biological reset that allows her to break the cravings withdrawal cycle that kept her tethered to her device. The third pillar is the manipulation of the visual environment, specifically the grayscale protocol. This is a tactical countermeasure against the reward prediction error we discussed in Part 2. In 2026, app interfaces are designed with vividity algorithms that use specific saturations of red and blue to trigger the brain's primal alert signals. Elena has set her smartphone to permanent grayscale. By removing the color, she is effectively detuning the slot machine. Recent data from the University of Pennsylvania indicates that users who switch to grayscale reduce their impulse checks by 40%. Without the bright red notification bubbles and the high-contrast imagery, the phone becomes what it was originally intended to be: a tool, not a toy. It loses its biological glow, making it far easier for Elena's prefrontal cortex to say no. Furthermore, Elena has established analog pockets in her physical environment. This is the concept of environmental architecture. In her Philadelphia apartment, her bedroom and her dining table are device-free zones. She has replaced her smartphone-based alarm with a mechanical clock and keeps her phone in a signal-blocking box in the hallway starting at 8 p.m. The potential outcomes of this physical separation are profound. A 2026 case study involving 1,000 U.S. households found that moving the phone out of the bedroom led to an average increase of 45 minutes of deep REM sleep per night. This allows the brain to perform the glymphatic clearing we discussed in Part 7, effectively washing away the metabolic waste of the day and restoring cognitive clarity. The final and perhaps most critical pillar of Elena's reclamation is the transition from social snacking to social dining. To combat the loneliness epidemic and the empathy gap of Part 5, Elena has committed to high-fidelity interaction. Once a week, she engages in a screen-less social ritual with friends. They meet in person, they leave their phones in a basket at the door, and they engage in eye-to-eye contact for at least 2 hours. This is the oxytocin strategy. By forcing her brain to process the micro-expressions and tonal shifts of a real human being, Elena is reactivating her mirror neuron system. Data from the 2026 National Health Survey shows that these high-fidelity interactions reduce systemic cortisol levels significantly more than 1,000 digital likes ever could. Elena is not just hanging out. She is performing neural maintenance on her social brain. Step by step, Elena is moving from being a user to being an agent. Step 1. Physical distancing. Step 2. Sensory de-escalation. Step 3. Cognitive rebuilding. Step 4. Biological social integration. By 2026, these tactics are no longer seen as optional for a healthy life in the US. They are considered essential survival skills for the digital age. Elena reports that for the first time in a decade, she feels spatially present in her own life. She is no longer looking at the world through a glass barrier. She is living in it. But as Elena and thousands of others begin to reclaim their minds, a larger question looms over the United States. While individuals can fight back, the platforms themselves are not standing still. The technology is evolving at an exponential rate. We are moving toward a world where the boundary between human and digital may disappear entirely. We have seen how to fix the individual, but can we fix the society? As we prepare for the final part of this masterclass, we have to look at the ultimate horizon. We have explored the addiction, the biology, the economics, and the recovery. Now we must face the future. In the final part, Part 10, we are going to explore the post-digital human, the 2030 horizon, and the final choice. We will look at the emerging 2026 data on brain-computer interfaces and the meta-reality that is currently being built to replace the internet as we know it. We will examine the sovereignty gap between those who choose to remain biological and those who choose to fully integrate with the machine. This is the final fork in the road for humanity. Which path will you choose? The answer is being written in your neural pathways right now. To understand the magnitude of this final fork in the road, let us observe the life of Leo, a 27-year-old tech consultant living in San Francisco in the summer of 2026. Leo is an early adopter of what researchers at the University of Washington call the neural bridge. We are no longer talking about a glass rectangle held in the palm of the hand. We are talking about non-invasive, high-fidelity brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. For Leo, the transition from being a social media user to being a digitally integrated organism has been seamless. He wears a sleek haptic-enabled headband that monitors his neural oscillations in real time, translating his thoughts into digital commands and, more significantly, translating digital signals back into his neural pathways. The 2030 horizon is the term US futurists used to describe the point where the distinction between a thought and a digital prompt becomes non-existent. In 2026, we are seeing the final stages of the external era. Everything we have discussed in this masterclass, the dopamine loops, the cortisol spikes, the thinning of the prefrontal cortex, has been an external to internal process. The light hits the eye, the sound hits the ear, and the brain reacts. But Leo's BCI bypasses the sensory gates entirely. Through a process called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, the device can nudge Leo's brain toward a specific state of focus, relaxation, or excitement. While marketed as a tool for total cognitive optimization, recent US studies have highlighted the potential outcomes of this zero-latency connection. Imagine if your addiction were no longer triggered by a vibration in your pocket, but by a literal pulse of electricity delivered directly to your ventral tegmental area. In this scenario, the withdrawal isn't just psychological. It is a profound neurological event. Leo's case study reveals that after 6 months of using the BCI for social immersion, his brain's natural ability to regulate mood has effectively been outsourced to the device. When he removes the headband, his baseline serotonin levels drop to a point that would be clinically categorized as severe depression. He has entered a state of neural dependency. This is the ultimate destination of the historical trends we have tracked since 2010. We have moved from checking a feed to renting our neurochemistry from a platform. This brings us to the emergence of the sovereignty gap. In the US of 2026, a social divide is forming that is deeper than any political or economic chasm. On one side are the biologicals, individuals who, like Elena in Part 9, have fought to reclaim their prefrontal cortex and maintain a firewall between their minds and the digital infrastructure. On the other side are the integrated, individuals like Leo who have chosen to merge their cognitive processes with AI-driven networks. A 2026 white paper from the Center for Advanced Study in the Behavioral Sciences at Stanford University suggests that this gap will define the next century of human evolution. The integrated will have access to near-instantaneous information and cognitive processing speeds that dwarf the biological mind, but at the cost of their internal locus of control. Step by step, the integrated human moves toward what researchers call collective cognition. Step 1, the outsourcing of memory and navigation to external devices, which we have already seen. Step 2, the outsourcing of emotional regulation through biofeedback and BCI nudges. Step 3, the merging of individual thought patterns with algorithmic consensus. In 2026, Leo doesn't decide what to think about a news event. His BCI feeds him a pre-synthesized emotional and factual framework that is calibrated to align with his digital tribe. This is the death of the individual, as understood in Western philosophy. Leo is a node in a massive high-frequency network where his self is a secondary consideration to the system's engagement metrics. The science of this integration is rooted in the concept of neural synchrony. US researchers have found that when large groups of people are fed the same algorithmic stimuli through BCI or high-immersion VR, their brainwaves actually begin to synchronize. They become a macroorganism. While this has potential outcomes for massive-scale cooperation, it also creates the ultimate rabbit hole. If the system decides that a certain level of outrage or fear is necessary to drive a specific economic or social outcome, it can trigger those states simultaneously across millions of integrated brains. This is no longer addiction, in the sense of a person liking a drug. It is systems management of the human population. Imagine if you were a cell in a body. You have your own functions, but you are ultimately subservient to the signals of the nervous system. For the integrated, the nervous system is the global server farm. For the biologicals, the nervous system remains their own. This is the choice you are making every time you choose to engage with or disengage from the predatory design of modern technology. Do you want to be an agent or a component? The human operating system is being rewritten. In the 2026 data, we see that the biologicals are showing higher levels of creativity, resilience, and deep empathy, the high-fidelity traits we discussed in Part 5. The integrated are showing higher levels of efficiency, data retention, and technical synchronization, but a profound loss of existential meaning. A case study of 300 US households that chose to remain analog first showed that these families reported a 80% higher life satisfaction score than those who adopted early-stage BCI technology. This is not because their lives were easier, but because their lives were theirs. As we conclude this deep dive masterclass, we must look at the physical reality of your own brain right now. You have just spent 10 parts analyzing the most complex and effective trap ever designed by human hands. By doing so, you have been engaging your prefrontal cortex. You have been building the top-down control necessary to see the machine for what it is. The recent US studies reveal a dark path, but they also reveal a biological exit. Your brain is still plastic. Your neurochemistry can still be reclaimed. Your attention is still your most valuable commodity. Leo's story in 2026 is a warning, not a destiny. The 2030 horizon is not an inevitability. It is a projection based on current behavior. Every time you consciously choose a slow, high-friction activity over a fast, low-friction digital reward, you are voting for your own sovereignty. Every time you choose a face-to-face interaction over a digital snack, you are reinforcing your biological humanity. We are the first generation in history to have to consciously fight to remain the species we were born as. The addiction is merely the first symptom of a larger transformation. We have explored the dopamine, the structural changes, the economic auctions, and the digital twins. We have seen how the algorithm tries to predict your future behavior. But the one thing the algorithm cannot account for is the disruptive power of human will. It can predict what you will do if you stay on the path it has laid out for you. It cannot predict what you will do if you decide to walk off the path entirely. This concludes our masterclass on the science of social media addiction. You now have the data, the case studies, and the biological blueprint to understand the world you live in. But this is only the end of the what. Now we must move to the how. Understanding the machine is the first step toward building something better. The question of 2026 is no longer, how do we fix social media? But, how do we remain human in its presence? In our next series, we will dive into the architecture of the new human, where we explore the emerging US movements toward cognitive liberty and the physical renaissance. We will look at how the next generation is building unhackable communities and the specific technology being developed to protect, rather than exploit, the human mind. The battle for your brain has moved to a new front, and you are going to need a new set of tools to survive what comes next. The choice is yours: stay integrated or stay human. The next part of the story begins the moment you put this screen down.